So this is for my worldview interview project for Bible. For this project, I interviewed Reed for my peer, and then my mom for my elder. I also answered all these questions myself. So one of the things I found most interesting about my own answers were how connected they were. When I first answered the questions, I really didn't see how they were connected. I could see a connection between some of them, but over the entire thing, I really just I couldn't see it. I it just all looked like there might be some connection there, but I just wasn't able to point it out. And just after mulling over it for a couple of days, I just slowly was able to see the connection in between all of those answers and how the answer to the first question of what is prime reality or the really real, just the answer to that, it really did lead all of the answers for the other questions. Um, some of the interesting things I found out about uh, the peer and parent interviews. I'll start with the peer first and what Reed said. Um, I struggled a lot in answering because I felt like I had to elaborate way too much on the answers, and I felt like there just needed to be like a really deep explanation. And Reed answered all of these in like very few words. Like literally, his answer to number five, why is it possible to know anything at all? His answer was God's love, and like that like sums it up so well, because at the end of the day, it is God's love that allows us to know anything at all, because God's love influences how we behave and how we think and how we act. um, One thing I found interesting about the parent interviews was it was a lot harder for um, my mom to interview these for to answer these questions, in the fact that I don't like, just like me when I first answered them, I had no idea what they were saying. You know, some of them, like what is a human being? I found that easy, and my mom had trouble looking at that and answering it, and it led to a lot of answers where I'm like, that's not something my mom would say to that question. I genuinely think of her as one of the most devout Christians I know, and seeing her just like not know how to answer these was almost kind of shocking to me. Like I this will lead into question 4 of which was the hardest. There were questions in there like question 7, which reads, "What is the meaning of human history?" And that was one that, although Reed answered everyone pretty much quickly, because I think he knew what his worldview was, I struggled with it. And my mom also struggled with it because, like, what threw me off was, what is the meaning of human history? It's not what is human history, it's what's the meaning of it. And the meaning portion threw me off of my answer, and I think that's what my mom had problems with. And so, one thing I noticed was hers just seemed to be kind of all over the place, which was, again, something I really didn't expect from her. In terms of like looking at all three and looking at them, just the variety of how we answered all of them. Like there really wasn't one person who answered it the same. Like I think the best example for this is like, what is a human being? I said a complex, organized being created by God. Reed said a being created in God's image. That was pretty similar. My mom said a Homo sapien. Now, like another one was, what is the meaning of human history? I said to help us learn from our mistakes as well as help us guide the future. Reed said what humans have done in the past. My mom said sin. which again is a very well encapsulated version of that question in the fact that our human history is sin. And although it might not be the meaning of it, it very well encapsulates what, from a Christian worldview, is our human history sunk in. You know, if we had, if we as humans had not sinned in the Garden of Eden, that wouldn't be our version of human history. But, you know, I think it's just that one word answer is just so, it encapsulates that entire question. The questions I struggled to answer were definitely number one, number two, number seven. Number seven, obviously, being what the meaning was, the meaning of human history. It wasn't as much of I just didn't know how to respond as I knew how to respond to a different version of the words in a sentence, but the way it was worded, I just didn't know how to respond. And, you know, again, it's something where I might have had a fleeting glimpse of thinking about it, but I really never spent time to think about it. Question one, what is the prime reality, the really real? That was just something I had no knowledge of going into this, where, you know, I didn't know how to answer that remotely. And it was, now knowing what the right answer to that is, it was something where I way too much overcomplicated it, because at the end of the day, that is one question where, you know, you give a simple answer and it's most likely the right one. And then the second one, the nature of external reality. I again didn't know what external reality even was, but I also didn't know what, you know, the nature of it would be. I think my response encapsulates that well. Like, my first thoughts for this were, you know, as humans, I don't believe that we can know or understand the exact nature of external reality. But my guess would be that it would be chaotic. And my guess was actually pretty close in the fact that external reality, in what a lot of other worldviews believe is chaos. No, with God, it's order. He maintains the order in what is, you know, considered outside of the box. Like, it's just incredible that he does that. And in terms of, like, going towards my faith, I think I would just like, you know, to just overall grow closer to God. And yeah.